Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. I did a bunch of segments last month on the podcast out of Baltimore Positive in the reunion, and I don't even know if I have my Brian Billick picture around here. I'll find it somewhere. Yeah, Coach Billick's under here. Coach Billick's never too far away as I'm packing everything up. So everything we did was about this particular date here, January 28, 2001. And some guys are busier than others, So this guy right here, it took him a month to get to us because he's like drafting and building and hiring and doing all of these things. And one time the Turk, when I met him back in the era back then, now the general manager of the New York Jets, we welcome Big Joe D, known around the boroughs as Joe Douglas. What's going on up there in New York? Building a football team, are we?
Yeah, what's up, Nestor? Yeah, I've been busy the last couple of weeks, with our coaching search, coaching hire, getting the staff together. But it's been awesome.
I knew when I hit you, I just sprayed everybody. I saw the team photo, and I thought, how many of those people are in my phone? I hit everybody. I've had more than half the team get back to me at one point, and those who didn't will later on, and I'll run into people. Tell Phil Savage I said hello, by the way. We exchanged some pleasantries as well. I know you got some Ravens people up there, but that Namath picture over your shoulder for anybody watching out on the Zoom and seeing what we do out on YouTube and out in the world, that Joe Namath picture's cool because it's of the same era. My first football game my dad took me to, I looked up the date. It was September 1973. I found my ticket stub. I found my program. Stan White sacked Joe Namath, separated his shoulder, knocked him out of the game. And here we are all these years later. You're running the Jets. I mean, were you aware of the Jets when you were down in Virginia as a young boy? Who was your team, man?
Oh, Richmond's was a big time Washington Redskins stronghold back when I was growing up. So,
and they were winning a lot then.
And they were winning. I mean, back in the early '80s. I mean, it was the Fun Bunch era, the Hogs era, Riggo, crank up that diesel. So it was big time Redskins era back then.
Riggins might be in that picture over your shoulder, right?
So in Riggins is one of my all-time favorite players. So in my office in Florham Park, there's a collage of great Jets players and Riggins, because a lot of people don't realize he was drafted by the Jets out of Kansas. And,
had great hair.
Yeah. Oh, great hair.
Those football cards are great, man.
Yeah. He was such a great, and people don't realize how fast he was. But he's in that collage. He's one of my all-time favorite players.
One of the things I love about all of you scout types and you behind the scenes, you love the game, and more than loving the game, no matter how old you are, whether you're your age or Ozzy's age, or even going to the next level of the Ron Marcinaks, who I still have his crock pot from the wedding, and R.I.P. and deep memories of Ron. But wherever it was, the history of the game sort of comes to you. And that Joe Namath picture, because I think you're a little younger than me, Joe. I remember seeing Joe as a boy, 5 years old. My dad takes me out. I wound up getting a Houston Oilers pennant that I still have. I became an Oilers fan. But we all get sucked into this, right? And loving football, loving the history of all of it. I would think your place in time in Baltimore, and I can pull out Coach Billick again. I mean, you really landed in a very, very interesting spot in the history of football for all of you. I mean, I have cool old pictures of, the Rex Ryans, and Jack Del Rio did the show a couple of weeks ago, and Marvin's out in the desert. All of these really rich stories 2 decades later from being in this incredible place and time in Baltimore, right?
Oh, absolutely. For me, just getting this opportunity in 2000, I had interviewed for the same personnel assistant job in '99 with the Ravens, hadn't gotten it.
And what were you doing then?
So I had just gotten done playing. So I literally would show up. We had 2 guys drafted from the University of Richmond my senior year. We had a good team at that level. We had 4 guys end up playing a long time, and then guys before, guys after. So
most importantly, did you beat Towson?
We didn't play Towson back then.
No, it was back then. It was Delaware.
Back then. So it went from when I started at Richmond, it was initially the Yankee Conference, and UConn, UMass, Villanova, Delaware, a lot of teams. So and then it went to Atlantic 10, and now it's the CAA. So when I graduated, we were Atlantic 10 champions, and Towson had yet to join. Hofstra had yet to join. That was before they shut down their football
It's
team.
all alphabet soup to me, man. I mean, the history of
Yeah.
forget football. How about basketball? You can't keep track of who's where, right?
Oh, I know.
So
But
you're coming off the field and you're trying to
coming
become
off the
a
field,
coach, a scout. But what in your mind's eye, were you going to be a head coach, or were you going to be what you've become, which is a general
I
manager?
knew that I wanted to just stay in football. I knew that football had gotten me where I was. There's no way I was going to go and graduate from University of Richmond without football, right? So I knew that I just wanted to stay in it somehow, some way. And so my O-line coach at the time, we had a great coaching staff. Joe Cullen offered me my scholarship when I was a freshman, when I was a senior in high school. Like we had a really good coaching staff, but Frank Leonard was my position coach. And he had, crazy enough, he had coached George Kokinis in high school, and he coached Scott Pioli in college. And so he'd call those two guys. He's like, I got a kid. He wants to be in football. He'll do whatever it takes. And so I would literally show up. We had an offensive lineman that was drafted in my senior year, Eric King. He was drafted to the Kansas City Chiefs, I want to say, in the 5th round. And then oddly enough, the other one was a 6th-round pick, Mark Megna, to the Jets. Crazy.
Did you have any chance of getting drafted, or were you just not that kind of player?
I had no chance.
No chance. Okay.
I played left tackle at Richmond. I was 6'2", 295. Not ideal.
Not good. Yeah.
Not ideal tackle numbers.
When the scouts came, they weren't looking at you.
They weren't looking at me. They were. Eric King, he was drafted. He was crazy. He was a quarterback conversion. He went from quarterback to tight end to offensive guard, became an All-American offensive guard, 6'6", 310 pounds.
An athlete.
Could run a sub 540, like just a great, unbelievable athlete. So anyway, I would work out. Like I knew Eric. Everyone was coming to see Eric and Mark. And I would just show up and work out with Eric, so he wasn't getting tired, so he wasn't the only guy getting beat up on. And then after a workout, I would just hand my resume. I knew I had no shot at playing in the NFL. So I had made a decision that I always loved the behind the scenes aspect of building the team and personnel. And I just.
So you always loved the draft. You were the guy watching Mel Kiper when you were a kid.
Always loved the draft. Always loved the draft. And the year prior, we had a linebacker get drafted to Washington, Sean Barber, who I grew up playing with. And so I just remember, being so involved in the draft that year because I knew Sean was going to get drafted. And I was like, man, and just seeing all the scouts come in, work Sean out, getting a chance to talk to him, I was like, man, this is such a sweet job. I would love to do this job. And so that was kind of the genesis of why I wanted to get into personnel.
Well, in the beginning, I guess, you play this Turk role in this strange new television show with Steve Sable's involved with and all these big personalities, right? Billick and Shannon and Goose, all of them. Give me what you find in 1999, 2000, 2001 with this fledgling organization, right? With the purple Barney outfits and Art Modell and but in practicing in this dumpy old facility that was left over from the police and the Colts from 2 decades before, you sort of zoomed into a situation that 20 years later, you're running the Jets, all of these names of people that, you read 20 years later from Super Bowl 35, they've all gone on to do interesting things. And I talked to Jack Del Rio about this, just that place and time and how it changes the trajectory of everything when you're around winning and when you do win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was such a unique situation. And look, I had an opportunity to interview with 2 other teams, the Jets and the Patriots coming out. And the only thing I knew about Baltimore was they used to be the Browns and Ozzie Newsome was there. And Ozzie was an all-time great player. And just getting there and I just getting the opportunity to be in the National Football League was just it's all you want, right? You just want to get to that level.
What was your first gig? Like picking people up and like
my first gig, literally you're just working on spreadsheets. And my first gig was picking up Sam Gash
at the airport,
picking up Sam Gash and then picking up Ben Coates, the coolest thing. And I remembered them from when they were in New England.
Well,
And
they had just played in the Super Bowl with Bledsoe and whatnot, right?
yeah, they'd been in the Super Bowl, played against the Packers, and I loved Penn State football. I love Sam Gash. I just love the way that dude played. And then Ben Winter Coates, and just giant tight end that had great hands. And because you're a fan first and foremost, just growing up, and your first two things you get to do to pick up Sam Gash and Ben Coates. I was
So
like,
you're
this
22
is
and they're
great.
30, right? Literally, right?
Yeah, they're on the back nine of their career, but awesome dudes. It just being able to sit in a van with them, driving them from BWI to Owens Mills, getting to know them. I took them to the stadium. I think Ben wanted to see the stadium, so we stopped off and she
It
walked
was
around.
brand new then, right? Nobody'd seen it.
Yeah, brand new. I don't know if Ben had played in it yet. He had heard about it. I was like, hey, we're right by the stadium. BWI's right.
Patriots played a game in Memorial, but yeah, early on. But so he would have played at Memorial. Not many people played football at Memorial in that era, right? Just a couple of years, going back
Just
to
a few
Namath
years.
in the era before. But man, I found all my ticket stubs. I found all my pictures. I have this wonderful picture of David carrying the trophy out in front of the building, where literally the Mayflowers, the same vantage point where the Mayflowers took the team, and David's carrying the trophy with Brian in tow, and there's police officers. And what do you remember about the whole mess of that? Because I've told this story to everyone, but the little cameras that David bought for everyone that Ozzie then had a salary cap penalty, I believe, later on after that, right?
We were. I remember walking into the room, and there was a different box on your bed. And I'm a young kid. I'm 22.
You're in Tampa, right? Literally.
Yeah, in Tampa, you walk into the bedroom and there's a camcorder. You walk into your bedroom, there's like a cool gift every day you're there. I was like, this is unbelievable. Yeah, but everyone's got their cameras out. We went to Disney one day. Everybody got in the bus and went to Disney one day. Just Art and David were just so generous, and we were all treated like kings.
Well, you've done it a couple times
even a
now,
young
right?
punk like
I mean,
me,
I remember being on a very cold night in Minneapolis with you recently, where you've been involved in winning in different places. That first thing spawns sort of how to do it, right? Literally.
No doubt. I mean, when you're first year in the NFL, you're lucky enough to just be a part and witness this crazy season from start to finish. And what a crazy season it was. It makes you realize the highs and lows of the season. And then you get to this grand stage, and the Modell family treated everybody like gold. And then that was carried forward 100% and then some by Steve Bisciotti and his family. I mean, just class act organization. Top to
So
bottom.
after the Super Bowl, I showed up down for the parade, and I didn't want to ride in the parade. Billick recruited me into the parade. I caught a cold in Tampa, if you can imagine, doing national radio, running around, doing all this stuff, hosting Whiskey Joe's, 5,000 people show up. We win the game. We're partying at the Hyatt West Shore. Come on, I'm sick as a dog. And I get recruited onto one of the Humvees. And when I think about it, all I smell is the fumes of the diesel,
Oh, yeah.
Like that morning, it was raining, it was gray, it was wet. But everybody's happy, but everybody's tired, right? And I got a hold of one of the camcorders. It was Flynn's camera, and he said, here, get on my float. You record it. You're a media guy. And I'm like, okay. So that tape was lost for 19 years. He lost it. Couldn't find it. Parents, Springfield, Massachusetts. You know the whole drill with Flynn, right? I mean, so it finally, during the plague, not much good has happened during the plague, Joe,
Right.
but the tape turned up. And he sent
Very
it to
cool.
me last May into June. I had it converted. I found a very young version of Ness and a very young version of Flynn. I'll pull it up for you in a couple minutes, make you cry. But I found this sort of time capsule part of it. What's your time capsule for that period of your life and winning and more than that, what it did for your life, what it did for your career? Because maybe you don't feel it then. It's just probably just fun then, right?
Yeah, it's just fun. You don't realize the magnitude of it, especially for me coming in year one. I remember, I think it was either Ozzie or Shaq. They pulled me aside and like, hey, this NFL thing's easy, huh? And I laughed, but then I looked at Oz, and Oz had been in the National Football League since the late '70s, and this was his first Super Bowl championship. And you think about the years and the tears and the heartbreak, and then for him to finally hoist that trophy, that was like emotional for me, just seeing Ozzy be able to do that. How
You
cool is it?
can you see why I'm trying to share this with you here? If you're looking down,
Yeah, I can see it.
it's kind of crazy, to go back and see Coach Billick and
Oh,
David on this, up on the thing.
yeah,
But for all these years later, there's that, and then for all of you, right? There's the morning after where you pick it back up and try to do it again, right? Like you had that in Philadelphia, whether you win or you lose,
yeah,
whether you're in New York with the second pick right now, or whether you won the Super Bowl and you're Tom Brady a couple weeks ago, right? And you're Tampa Bay, Bruce Arians, the whole organization. There is something about the work part of it for all of you, the scout types, and not even the coaches, not even the players who we see every Sunday. Guys like you, we only see on a Zoom call once in a while, or bump into in Indianapolis, or maybe hear from if you're a Jets fan once in a while. But I just know the back scenes of all the walls and the names and the people, and knowing that when your punter goes down, you need to have a punter, right? Like pro personnel, college, all of that. Learning all of that when you're a kid from Richmond coming in, learning it the right way, it's probably like a golf swing, right? Like you
right.
having seen it firsthand being done the right way and being exposed to it in that way, it's probably set you on an incredible
Yeah,
path, right?
I'll never forget when I was first hired here. My first training camp, one of our scouts pulled me aside, who had been here for a while. He goes, "Let me tell you something, Joe." He said, "Being here, working with Ozzie Newsome," he goes, "This is like getting your MBA or law degree from Harvard. Like this is like you don't realize it, but." He's like, we're doing a lot of special things here, and he was 100% right. And so, and then going back to your other point, like you don't really get to enjoy this long, in terms of you celebrate, you have that night. You were there for that night after the Philly Patriots game. You have the parade, like literally after we had the parade in Philadelphia, which was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. um the very next morning, we're in Jeffrey's boardroom going over the team, like the very next morning, 9 a.m. And so it's just you just got to put that to bed as soon as you can.
Joe Douglas is our guest. He is in New York trying to put together another football team in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a plague, and, crisis management, Joe, right? Like, so for all of this, spent a long time in Baltimore, right? You saw one coach come, one coach go, players come, quarterbacks come. I mean, various transgressions, tragedies, failed draft picks, Hall of Fame draft picks, all of that goes on in Baltimore. That's also the point for you where you decide, like, to go on your own way. Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, all of that. Boy, the Ravens are one of those places, and it's interesting because the Orlando Brown thing's going on here. I haven't heard a whole lot of people that ever look to leave Baltimore, right? Like, when you come to Baltimore, you generally stick around a little while, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Baltimore is certainly a destination organization, and I think that was always the environment that Ozzy and Art and Steve wanted to create. They wanted to create a place where people would come and stay, and treat people the right way, and they've done that. So when you do leave Baltimore, if you do leave Baltimore, it's an excruciating decision, because just for me, 15 years of my life, 15 years 15 like of the best years of my life, working with Ozzy, working with Eric, Phil, some great people. And that was a really tough decision. But a decision, you because everyone is treated well and not many people leave. For me personally and professionally, it was a tough decision, but a decision that felt like I had to make at some point.
Well, professionally, though, too, the opportunities seem to come when you win, right? Like, it wasn't your first phone call from the Bears, right? Like, I mean, it just And in the rest of the industry, and I had John Feinstein on this week with Don Moeller, Baltimore Positive. We were talking about Ryan Odom at UMBC, and the notion that they beat Virginia, which I'm sure you're aware of, right?
Yeah.
And that would lead to the next thing. And here we are, like 3, 4, 5 years later, he's still here, and you say, well, do you want to be a nomad or do you not, right? You know what I mean? And in your line of work, bro, I've stood out there in Indianapolis with you back in the Hoosier Dome 20 years ago and stood in that hallway. And I watched guys walk by one year with a Jets jersey. The next year it's a Browns sweatsuit. The next year it's a Raiders sweatsuit. And, the nomadic existence of all of that. And I'm sure, and bringing it full circle to what you're doing with the Jets to make this thing current, it's what you're trying to build, when you're given the green hat up there, right? Like you're trying to build this thing that you're still there 5-10 years from now, and you've built this thing, but it's the hardest thing to do, right? I mean, even the fact that you're there and not in Philadelphia right now, like, and the other Philadelphia people aren't there anymore. NFL, not for long, but there are some places where, you really make it work, and those become the most desirable places, and you're now in charge of trying to build that sort of thing because you were a part of something like that.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Nestor. There's those teams that are just the pillar of stability and consistency, right? And Baltimore's one of those organizations. The Steelers, who we were always battling with, is another one. There's that handful of teams in the National Football League. They're just great organizations. They're pillars of consistency. They have guys that have been there forever. The stability aspect of it, that means something. And so, we're trying our best to create that here in New York, and make this and take a lot of the same principles from Baltimore and creating a place where not only players but staff, coaches, scouts, marketing, the ticketing, just everybody is treated great, and wants to stay and wants to be here forever.
So I'm going to have some fun with you now because I got an email about 3 days ago, and I'm not going to out the person in your organization who sent this to me, but it was from like a ticket place because I've run a lot of bus trips up to the Jets games. So I got an email. I was literally having dinner. I look at my phone. It's from the Jets, and I've been emailing with you, and it had nothing to do with you or me, but it was kind of funny. They wanted to know if I was running a bus trip up, and I'm like, I don't even know if we play the Jets this year, and we have like a plague on. Maybe I should email the cat back. So turns out it was a 2022 email about coming up. So,
wow.
People in your building, man, they're on the ball up there, and you're trying to create a better football.
Staying out in front.
So this is the point where I get to ask, who are you picking with number 2? What's going on with the quarterback situation? Where's Joe Flacco? What's going on with your team? Give me a little briefer, because if I bring you on and don't ask about the Jets, then, I look like a softball just having you on. But you are pretty busy right now, right? I mean, I appreciate you taking a little time to come on. But this is the weirdest thing, right, with combines. And I'm not going to run into you in Indianapolis this week or next week, and a lot of the normal things. This isn't even normal for you, and you've been doing this for a long time.
This is the opposite of normal. Really, since the combine last year has been the opposite of normal for all of us. But for us right now, we spent a few weeks after the season making sure we brought in a tremendous coach, and we're so excited that Coach Sala wanted to be here. He was able to nail down a phenomenal staff of guys, and then since then we've been in meetings. We've been grinding on tape. Like today's it's Sunday. Today's a little bit of a break for our scouts. We've been in draft meetings for the past 4 days, and we're going to be in draft meetings for most of next week, and then we go right into free agency meeting with our coaches. So we've really been just constantly watching tape, constantly meeting, constantly communicating, going over the coaches have presented their profile tapes on exactly what they're looking for in their system and their scheme, the position specifics, the critical factors. So we've just been taking really these last 3 to 4 weeks and just communicating and getting on the same page. And now, one of my favorite times of year is these February draft meetings with our college scouts, because they put in so much time and effort, just especially in a year like this.
Run me through that, because, I mean, you could have been the guy at that point in your career. I mean, you're sitting in a higher chair now and you're looking at it. But if you were the one who was staying at the Ramada, beating the bushes, trying to find the next great kid in Texas or Miss, I mean, you did all of that work. To have that taken away this year, is there any upside in it? Was there any advantage to any of this for any organization when these kids aren't playing 10, 11, 12 games and things aren't sort of normal?
Yeah, I think the advantage comes when you have a group of scouts that have great relationships with people inside the buildings at these colleges, because we have to know these players. We have to know everything that makes them tick. We have to know how they treat people, who's their go-to person when they're facing adversity. We need to know everything we possibly can about these players, and especially in a year like this, like teams are getting on Zoom calls, right, with a bunch of scouts, and they're these very, I'm sure they've been these very generic Zoom calls where you're just getting baseline information. But the advantage comes is when you have scouts that have those special relationships inside the building and can make those one-off calls, can get the information that other teams may not get. That's going to be where the advantage or disadvantage lies in this draft.
So you're not going to tell me who you're drafting. You know what the funny thing is? And you were one of the guys that used to fill out the envelopes back in the day when I would go around. You remember that? I would go around on Friday,
Yeah.
and everybody would – can you imagine doing that now? But I have your handwriting on something that may have – I don't know what player it said. I'll make a name up from 2003 or 4. Dwan Edwards or whatever, right, from back in the day. But – you know, the funniest thing is, for every fan, for every Gary Vaynerchuk out there that's a nuts Jets fan, or, you know, whoever's out, they seem to think you might even know who you're drafting. You don't even know who you're drafting, right? Literally.
I think a lot can change from now until the draft. I mean, we're still allowed to do Zoom calls with the players. We're still allowed to go to the pro day. There's no combine. We're still allowed to go to the pro day. There's no private workout settings, so there's restricted there. But we can still do these Zoom calls, and I feel like we did that last year. So I think that's the curveball that I felt like we were able to adapt and adjust to last year after the combine when we weren't going to pro days. It's like the opposite. We had last year we had the combine, no pro days. This year, no combine, but we can go to the pro days, which is weird. But the Zoom calls with the players remains constant. And I feel like we had a really good format for those meetings with the players last year.
Well, I never made it up there when Rex was running the place and Patton was – I mean, I had an open invitation. And, you know, I guess I was a little jaded, right? I mean, Marvin always invited me out to Cincinnati. 2 decades, I never went out. Like, Marvin's like, why don't you come out on a Thursday and hang out for a couple days and, like, see practice and whatever. I'm like, yeah, 2 days in Cincinnati's enough. Now, all of a sudden, you know, Tomlin's invited me up to their scrimmage up in Latrobe, and I've never done any of that. And now it's taken away from me. And there's going to come a point when the mask and the shot and all that, where I'm just going to chase all of you around in like August. Might be 2 years from now, but I am going to get back out on the trail. I want to see the buildings and see that Joe Namath. I want to walk the you know, see old Ricky Bell pictures in the corner and Ken O'Brien. I want to experience things because I've been cooped up too long, Joe D.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure before. I mean, you bleed purple and orange. That's you. So you probably never really wanted to. You didn't want to get out because you just cared about.
How did you know I was wearing orange shoes, dude? Did you know that? You knew that.
I know you've said that story to me before about being invited, but you know, I know you and how much you believe.
Well, here's the deal: when the Stones put the band back together, I'm assuming they're going to play MetLife Stadium, and I'm figuring maybe somehow there can be an intersection of a rock and roll show or something like that. Hey, man, good luck. Choose wisely, as Indiana Jones once said, when it comes to the draft. And I really do appreciate you coming back. So I'm going to do one last thing here for you, one last little exercise. Hold this up. What's this make you think of when you see Coach doing this, man?
It makes me think of, man, that makes me think of a lot. It makes me think of the month that we didn't score an offensive touchdown and we still won 3 of those 5 games. And it makes me think of an unbelievable party at that West Shore hotel.
Dude, I found all the pictures. We're so young.
Yeah, just so a lot of emotion, just hugging Ozzie, you know, even though Ozzie didn't really want to be hugged because Ozzie's so even keel and calm and cool and collected. I gave him the biggest bear hug I could possibly give him, and he hated it, but I loved it.
Oh, hold on. My wife wants to say hello. She's just coming in to yell at part of the segment
awesome.
here. You got to put the headset on.
I just wanted to say hi.
Hi, it's great to see you. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. How about you?
You keeping this guy in line?
That's impossible.
Yeah, it's
Ness wants to know who you're picking.
Joe, we appreciate you, man, as always. Stay safe up there and, get the shot, wear the mask, make the football team better, and, win the Super Bowl, remember the little guys. I can say that about you. When you won the Super Bowl, you remembered the little guys.
always.
Hey, man, appreciate you. Thanks for coming on, bro.
All right, brother.
Good luck to you, all right? Tell Phil and everybody up there we said hello, all right?
We'll do.
And in 2022, tell your guy I'll run a bus trip, all right?
Let's go. We'll get that bus trip up here.
There we go, up to MetLife Stadium. Joe Douglas, GM of the New York Football Jets, joining us. Old memories, old videos, old pictures. Took him a couple weeks to get back, but he is busy. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570. Towson, Baltimore, we never stop talking. Baltimore, positive.